What's up guys? Welcome back to another episode of Manji TV. On today's episode, we have this super cool G82 M4 in a 6-speed manual in for some H&R lowering springs. We are gonna be installing the blue H&Rs, not the VTF kit. So we're gonna be walking you through the process of doing so. This particular client is actually the winner of our giveaway from the recent SD Bimmers Fest that we attended. And we had a little raffle and this particular customer won. So we're gonna be installing these springs free of charge and making a little content for you guys. So hopefully you guys like it. Now let's get on to installing these springs. Here's a quick look at the H&R blue sport springs. Obviously you've got your fronts and your rears. They do come with some additional bellows or bump stops that are slightly shorter so that you don't prematurely run into your stock ones. These are roughly about like 1 inch shorter. We'll be showing you the difference here once we get the old ones off, but yeah, not too much to see here. Your typical springs, they do have some nice coating on them so that when they do bind here at the end sections, they don't rub each other and rust. So very nice, well thought out parts. We've already got the car on the lift. We're gonna go ahead and take her up and get these wheels off. All right guys, so I've got the wheels off. I just wanted to give you a quick look at the factory springs before I remove them. It's quite an easy job here. So all we're really gonna be messing with are these camber adjustment screws and the shock bolt, 18 millimeter here and a 21 millimeter here on the other side. We're gonna be taking those off and pulling the arm down to get the spring out. But this is what it looks like from the factory. We'll go on over to the other side. There is one other thing you gotta deal with on the side, which is this little level sensor. You want to be sure to pop this little guy off here. These things pivot on like a little pivot ball, and a screwdriver or pry bar kind of right underneath it. You can just pop them off. So we'll go ahead and do that on this side, as well as just removing these 2 bolts. But yeah, let's get to it. Doesn't take very long. It's about 10 minutes aside, essentially, maybe 15 minutes. Those of you guys working on the ground might take you a little bit longer, but yeah. And this car is pretty sweet. It's got a nice Valvetronic exhaust system on it, and some downpipes and a tune. Hopefully we can help this customer reach his goals with the car here moving forward. But nonetheless, he's got a great start, and these springs are gonna be a nice touch to the whole build. All right guys, so I have gone ahead and pulled the shock bolt out. Like I said before, it's just an 18 millimeter nut and screw head. So you'll use a wrench and like an impact to break it loose. You do wanna pre-tension the suspension when you go ahead and remove this camber bolt. We have done the same on the other side. The bolt's still in it. I'm gonna be pulling it out now, but I just wanted to give you guys a quick look. I like to do things kind of in unison. Now, although you can't just like do both springs at once, obviously, I'll get everything loose, all the tools out. I will pull the one spring out, put the new one in, then go to the other side, do the same thing. And then while I'm doing that, I will pre-tension the suspension and torque them side by side. And another quick tip is to mark where your cam bolts were so that when you put them back in, you can line that up and hopefully your alignment hasn't changed too much. So we're gonna go ahead and pre-tension the suspension to get this camber bolt out. The way I like to do this is just put it something, a jack or pull stand right under the lower arm, press it up a little bit to take the tension off of the spring pushing down so you can get this bolt out easier. So we're gonna go ahead and do that right now. All right guys, as you can see right now, the bolt's kind of stuck in here, but if I go ahead and pre-tension this arm just a little bit, you'll kind of find there's a happy spot where it won't have too much tension, but it will just generally slide out. Of course, now that I've got it, you guys on the camera, it's not working. There it is. So, like that, everything will just come out, and we'll go ahead and lower the arm down. As you can see, there was a bunch of tension pushing this arm past the kind of neutral position for this hole. So that helps a lot to get these bolts out. All right guys, so it's too hard to do one-handed, but what I do basically is use one hand to pull the arm down like this, and use my other hand to just slide the spring right between these 2 arms. So I've got the spring down on the floor over here. I'm gonna go ahead and give you a quick look. This is the factory spring on the right and the H&R on the left. As you can see, it is slightly shorter. Not a whole lot shorter, but it's definitely shorter. I'm not sure as far as the spring rate, whether one's stiffer or not. I'm guessing it would be due to it being lower. Another thing to note is you always want the H&R logos facing up so that you can read them when you install them on the car. There are some little rubber hockey pucks that need to be switched over, or isolators, insulators, whatever you want to call them. We're gonna go ahead and install those on the new springs and show you that in the car. All right guys, so I've torqued now the outer to 165 Newton meters and the inner shock bolt here to 74 Newton meters plus 90 degrees. I'm gonna go ahead and mark everything, but as you can see here, our mark is lined back up perfectly. Our new spring is in, all perfect. We've got our new lower spacer or insulator on, which the little nipple points outward, as you can see here on both sides. And the top pat is in there, everything's looking good. H&R is readable from the back of the car. It's also facing backwards. That's one thing to note, is the spring should always be facing the rear. The riding should be facing the rear, I mean. So we're gonna go ahead and do this side here. I'll try and get a little video of me actually pulling the spring out and putting it in and torquing it so you guys can see how really quick this is. It's been about 10 minutes. All right guys, so something to note is the little end of the spring here needs to catch on the little stopper on your little insulator pads. There's like a kind of a wall essentially, and you want to butt the end of the shock. So I've got the end here. I'm going to butt that up on the end of the insulator. So something to note, and make sure your riding's facing up. I just installed it on the incorrect side. So go ahead and switch that over. But really easy guys, literally one of the easiest mods you can do to your car. That really just gives it not only an additional performance gain, but also gives it a massive gain when you're talking about looks and aesthetics. So this is the look of the spring before we install it. Insulator pad on the bottom, insulator pad on the top. Everything's butted up as it should be. Really quick, let's go ahead and pull this arm down and shove it in there. It's kind of tricky sometimes as the spring fights you, so just be patient, pull it down as far as you can, tip the spring up, and align it with the hole in the top. Try not to knock your pad off. Sometimes the pads will get caught and kind of get knocked off, so something just to note. Once again, all right, let's go. All right guys, that's in. Sometimes your shock will get shifted, so you will have to just sometimes pivot the shock a little bit so that it lines up where it should and falls into place. Always make sure your nipple's facing outward. On this passenger side, actually, the riding will be facing forward. Now is a great time to go ahead and throw your shock bolt in as everything's fully extended and there's no tension. The bolt goes in from the front of the car facing the rear, and will need just a little bit of tension to get it lined up. Go ahead and just barely move the arm up. As you guys can see, nut goes on the back facing the rear of the car. We will go ahead and torque that in a bit. Next thing is to get this ball joint lined up for the knuckle. And you want to be careful that it doesn't shift as mine just did, as you will fight it when it goes in. So make sure to line the arm up perfectly so that it doesn't fight you. And then you will find, oh, you know, he's fighting us. It literally never happens like this. So if this ball joint twists, it kind of can be a little tricky. As you guys saw, you just gotta like get the sides of it just perfectly perpendicular to the arms here, or parallel with the arms, whatever you want to consider it. Once again, we're gonna go ahead and pre-tension it to where our bolt kind of starts to line up. Sometimes it takes a little gentle persuasion. Twisting it can be a big help too. It seems to get stuck like mine is. Twisting this bolt can help get it through the other side. Also visually taking a peek. Usually they just pop right in, but I think because I kind of messed up the ball joint, twisted a little bit on me, and now it's fighting a little bit. Sometimes they just like to be a little pain in the butt if everything kind of shifts where it shouldn't be. Usually not the case though. And I'll pivot this bolt until it drops right in between the ears here. Now we've got it in. Now we can put the misalignment spacer on the other side. Make sure you note which direction it's going to keep it the same side to side. And then we'll go ahead and throw our nut on it. I personally like to start with this one and get it tight so that it doesn't move on us. We'll go ahead and snug this down by hand, and then we'll torque it here in a second. Before we torque that, we need to pre-tension this shock bolt as it's mounted to a rubber bushing, whereas the outer pivot is a monoball and does not matter. So we'll go ahead and bring this up until the car wants to start coming off the lift, or the suspension stops compressing, which is about right there. I will grab my 18 mil wrench and socket, give this a quick zap with the impact. And then from there, torque it. So once again, it's 74 Newton meters plus 90 degrees. You'll see here, we haven't even reached 74, so there's 74. And the best way to do 90 degrees is you can get an angle torque wrench, but you just take it perpendicular with the bolt and pull it till it's straight. That'll give you your 90 degrees. And that's how I do it. All right guys, so we're gonna go ahead and torque now our outer bolt to 165 Newton meters or 121 foot-pounds. Go ahead and hold it with our wrench here, and we'll click this bad boy in. Now I'm gonna go to the other side and do the other side. And that's it. Your rear springs are done. Let's move on to the front. All right guys, so give you guys a quick look at everything before we take it apart. As you can see here, the stock springs are still in. We will have to remove the brake line from the brackets here. You will have to kind of undo some of these connectors so that you can get more room to tip your strut outward so we can get the springs off. You will have to take your 16 millimeter nuts off the end links here, both sides, and that's about it, other than the center bolt here on the top, which I'll show you in a second. We're gonna go ahead and get to that. Let's go ahead and continue tearing this thing apart. All right guys, so here's a quick look. We've removed the sway bar end link. We've undone our connector that goes to here and just pulled it back. We've undone our ABS wire so that it can just be free. Same with our brake cable is just free in here. Hopefully you guys can see that, just free. So that's basically all that's needed to be done to go ahead and tip this strut outward. Last thing we're gonna do is the top bolt, but I'm gonna go ahead and move to the other side and get this side done. Driver's side does have one extra thing to worry about, which is your brake wear sensor. So you will have to also undo your brake wear sensor and your level sensor here. So you guys can see that. Same thing goes at the back. You're just gonna wanna pop this off the little ball socket so that it's free and does not get overextended in the process of swapping out the springs. So let's go ahead and get this side apart as well, and then we'll get the top bolts and we'll show you that once it comes off. All right guys, so gone ahead and removed the panels on the passenger side. I'm doing the same on the driver's side. There are 3 little pop clips, one here, and one here, as well as this little turn key. You'll have to turn. Just pop your panel up out of the way. And then this thing's basically free. The only thing holding it down now is this connector. You can just kind of grab the boot here, and jiggle it left, right, left, and kind of just pop the whole thing up. You can see here, there's a little electrical connector in there. You're gonna have to be careful reinstalling that, making sure you get it down correctly. It is keyed to go in a certain way, so just note that. These are little pop clips I was talking about. They come out super easy with a little pry tool. Now we're gonna go ahead and zap this bolt here, which I believe is a 12.18 mil. And before we do that, we'll bring the car down lower, and we're gonna support the lower arm with a jack and just put a little bit of pre-tension so that when I do zap that bolt, this whole thing doesn't just go kaboom and shoot downward. So we're gonna bring the car down now and put a little pre-tension and then zap this bolt. All right guys, so we have the jack under the lower arm here. We've given it about 1 or 2 pumps, just enough so that the shock will be supported. We got an 18 mil 12-point socket with a 1/2 inch drive, and I'm just gonna impact this nut off while also going through here like this and just pinching the shock shaft so that it doesn't turn. That's kind of the trick here, guys. So let's go ahead and do that. It's gonna take 2 hands. I'm not really gonna be able to film it, but I'll try and set the camera up here and get me impacting it. That easy, guys. Our nut is now off, and we can lower down our strut. To put your nut in a safe place, we'll go ahead and lower this whole suspension setup down. All right, and the other thing to do is kind of support the strut as it comes down and pull the jack out of the way. Now you guys can see the whole strut and everything is basically free. We'll tip this out carefully. We will pull our bigger bump stop off and replace that with our new H&R one. Pull our spring off. I do like to clean this little spring perch out and make sure there's no rocks and debris in here that are gonna cause our spring to not sit in the ideal position. So make sure to note that. Here's the old spring. This guy also does have a little stopper that keys to the end of the spring. So we'll go ahead and pull that out. We'll grab our new H&R spring, notating the riding is facing up. Once again, we'll drop this bad boy in the spring. We'll slide it over to the bump stop. Same goes for the bottom side. We'll slide it all over. Make sure it sits in the lower perch just perfectly and butt it up. We'll grab our new H&R bump stop and slide that over the shock shaft. And that's it, guys. It's really straightforward. We're gonna go ahead and install this thing back in the car. So first things first, just tip it up. It'll kind of hang out in the strut tower once you tip it up. It's a little easier if you have a second person helping you, but I do these all the time by myself. As you can see here, get the lower arm supported by the jack, and then we're just gonna center this thing up into the strut tower, making sure to line the shock up with the hole. And as you go through, it'll kind of support itself. Just jiggle it back and forth as you jack. Generally, it'll fall right into place. You do want to make sure your spring aligns as well on your turn plate. And that's it, guys. She's in. The shock shaft has poked through the top, and all we're gonna do is the same thing we did to impact it off, which is put our impact on, squeeze our shock shaft. And now we can take the jack out, and our H&R springs are installed. It's really that fast, guys. It does not take us long. This impact will generally get the torque to basically the perfect spot. The torque for this nut is 44 Newton meters. So we're gonna go ahead and actually double check that here in a second, but everything is essentially done. It's just reverse of what we did to take it apart. So we're gonna go ahead and clip all of our harnesses back into the correct locations, our brake cable and whatnot. We will torque the sway bar end link to 56 Newton meters. And so that's it, guys. Let's go ahead and do it. All right, guys, let's go ahead and do the same thing. This other side, we're just gonna maneuver our jack in here to note being careful of the backing plate there. As you can see, we've got it under the arm. I'm gonna give it like 1 or 2 pumps. As you can see, just to put a little pre-tension, all of the stuff previously mentioned has been removed and out of the way. So we're gonna go ahead and zap this top bolt now. Once again, make sure to also reach in and hold the shock shaft. Here we go, guys. That is done. Set this over here. We're gonna go ahead and lower the jack to allow for the strut to come down. Pull the jack out of the way. Our strut, for whatever reason on this side, is getting awfully cocked here. Going ahead and got it just past where it needs to go. Now it's good. All right, guys, just a quick comparison of the 2 front lowering springs. Once again, as you can see, the spring is slightly shorter than the other one, the stock one. So we're gonna be going ahead and throwing in our bump stops here, which you can see are about 1 inch shorter. This is the KW ones. We're gonna be throwing that in with the spring. Once again, notating the spring is facing upward with the riding facing up. So let's go ahead and do that. One more thing to note too is I always like to check my strut mounts. And for whatever reason, this one's actually a little crunchy, so I've let the customer know. But something to pay attention to when you're putting these together is make sure your strut mounts are good. And also clean all this dirt and stuff out of here. So yeah, let's keep on moving on. Rotate this bad boy till it bumps up against the little stopper here. That's all you got to do there. Take our bump stop, slide it over the shock shaft, and also don't forget your little bellow, which is kind of a dust boot for the shock. These like to break down as well over time. Being these cars are so new, most of you guys won't experience this, but down the road as these cars get older, these like to tear and rip. And so it's also a good idea to maybe replace these. As you guys can see here, as I push the lower arm up, the shock shaft comes right through the hole. We'll go ahead and throw our nut on it. Grab our impact with our 18 mil 12-point socket, throw that on it, and I'll go in here and pinch the shock shaft like this through the bellow, so you guys can see that there. You're just pinching it, and we'll run this thing down. And then we'll go ahead and pull our jack out, and that's basically the completion of the install of our H&R blue sport springs. One last thing obviously is going to be to reroute all of this stuff the way that it was previously. So kind of give you a rundown of that here. Here's our ABS sensor. This will pop in also down here from the back side. Make sure to clip all of the lines in where they respectively go. Our brake line comes over the top here. This stuff is really easy, guys. It just pushes on there. This wear sensor here kind of goes up over here on the frame and over to here on this bracket. Takes a little persuasion sometimes, some of these. And that's basically it, guys. Brake wear sensors in. Last thing is this ABS sensor, and all of that is as it should be. Look up our EDC sensor here, push it in, clip it on the back here, and that'll do. That's a wrap, guys. The last thing is going to be put this level sensor on the nipple here, which if you just force it, you can get them to pop back on. And that's it, guys. That's the final look of everything. Last will be to put our sway bar end link up, which just tucks up. You will have to force it down, but we'll do that here in a second. It's going to take 2 hands, and torque that to 56 Newton meters, and torque this bolt to 44 Newton meters. Make sure to put your covers back on, your electrical connector, and we'll be done. All right, guys, here's one more look at everything installed. We have torqued our sway bar end links to 56 Newton meters here with a 16 mil socket and torque wrench. All the wires are connected as they should be. H&R springs looking beautiful. We are gonna go ahead and just help him with his exhaust. He has the exhaust sitting a little bit low. So we're gonna go and just readjust this exhaust real quick, and then we'll go ahead and get the car off the lift and get a final look at everything. As you can see here, I've marked the bolts in the back. I've also gone and done the same in the front, and we've torqued also that top nut to 44 Newton meters. So let's go ahead and put those panels in and just wrap this car up, put the wheels on, and get a final look at the car. We'll also take it for a test drive and just see how everything feels. One thing to note, guys, is this little connector here has like some keys on it. You can see there's 2 little like fingers kind of coming off the side. So it's best to look down in here and match it up with the corresponding direction, as they can be a little tricky to get in. So we've basically wrapped the car up. We've put the wheels on. I've got the other side in and all the push pins in, and I'm just finishing up the last side now. And we're gonna torque the wheels to 100 foot-pounds, and then we're gonna take this thing for a test drive and really get a good look at the final ride height. All right, guys, so before I show you the complete final ride height, I wanna drive the car and really let it settle. As you can see, she's quite loud. We've got the exhaust valves open, so we're gonna go for a quick test drive and see how she feels. Now, I've driven quite a few of these cars stock and lowered and on Haas kits and AST springs, and so this will be the first time driving one of the H&Rs. It'll be interesting to see how she feels, but my guess is it'll feel better than stock, and hopefully just as good as any other setup or better. This thing's pretty rowdy. It's got a JB4 in it and a downpipe and full exhaust system, so it sounds really good. Not bad. Alignment's a little wonky. Honestly, I didn't test drive the car before, so not 100% sure if the alignment was good. Usually the springs don't move the alignment too much, but sometimes they can. As I mentioned, I did mark the suspension to put it back to where it was. But yeah, anyways, honestly, car feels nice and stiff. Doesn't feel too much worse than, say, OEM, but it is super darty, which is nice. So it does feel like there's less body roll than what a stock G82 feels like. There's a pretty good bump here, took it at speed. It's not super rough, but it's definitely nice and firm, which is what you'd expect from a nice sports car like this. Here's some good bumps through this section as well, kind of off camber sections. Very good. Here's another one. Yeah, oh yeah. It's like a very OEM-like feel, being that we're still on the factory struts, but definitely just feels like the car is a little bit better supported. So very nice, very easy install for those of you guys looking for just a little bit more aggressive look without really breaking the bank. Definitely make sure to check these out. We'll be listing the link to the parts down below in our description, as well as all the torque specs and anything else you guys will need for the job. Make sure to hit the like button, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Hopefully you guys like this. Some nice downshift rev matching for you guys. This thing is rowdy. This exhaust is loud. And to be honest, the manual in this car is so much better than my F87. I hate to say that, but Jesus, they really fixed a lot of the issues with the manual transmission. I've driven some other cars and I don't know, I wasn't super impressed, but for some reason in this one I really like it. It's mental the power this car has after about 4,000 RPM all the way to red line. Pretty sick. Breaking loose there. She's fun. Now let's get a good look at the ride height here. Little exhaust rev for you guys. Very nice. All right, let's check out this final ride height. So it's definitely lower. Wheels are still kind of peeking through. You can get a finger or two above the tire, so it's not extremely low. For those of you worried about being way too low with speed bumps or scraping your lips and stuff. So very nice, modest ride height. It will continue to kind of lower over the coming weeks, so be sure to come back and we'll do like a update on this thing. But yeah, I mean, you can expect probably another ½ inch of sag over some driving time. So yeah, nonetheless, very happy with the install, very happy with the outcome. Hopefully you guys like this video. Make sure to comment and subscribe as well. Tell us what you liked, what you didn't like, and what you want to see next. So yeah. If you like this video, be sure to check out the next one, and if you haven't subscribed yet, be sure to subscribe and like the video. It helps a lot. Thanks, and see you in the next one.